Hey guys, I'm back with an introduction to my Howa Raider in the 2.6 Legacy League. If you've been watching my other videos, you've probably seen my Raider crush most of the content in the game, and in this video I'm going to explain how I'm able to do that with this character and go over the passive skills, the ascendancy choice, and the items and flask as well. So if you played the Breach League, you probably know Howa very well, because the Howa, or the Hand of Wisdom in Action, is a breach unique you get from Esh, one of the Breach Lords, and in his domain specifically. But how it works on this Ranger, who I ascended into a Raider, is that you grab 2 Hand of Wisdom in Actions, and you can see that the Hand of Wisdom in Action has a Wed roll, and it has increased intelligence and dexterity roll, as well as it adding flat lightning damage per 10 intelligence and slum attack speed per dexterity. So the idea behind this character is to basically, if you've played any foil type character who used the spectral throw in the past, it's going to be very similar, where you use the added lightning damage and you scale it as high as you can from your gear by stacking a ton of intelligence, and by a ton I mean 1241 intelligence compared to 166 strength and 288 dex. So to go over the gear for this character, the core gear is basically the Hand of Wisdom in Action. Besides that, you can pretty much just do whatever you want. I chose to get Astramentus because I like the 82 all attributes, and well, you can make it go up to 100, and I like the frenzy charge on hit. I mean the +1 to max frenzy charges, because with this I'll be able to get 9 frenzy charges where regularly you have 3, and I'll go over that a little bit later. Everything else I have is basically rares and energy shield gear, and most of them has like 1 intelligence roll on it somehow. I don't have one on my belt, but I think everything else, okay, I don't have one on my belt and my helmet, but everything else does have it. So yeah, you basically stack as much intelligence as you can, and both of these are gonna convert them to flat lightning damage, and you end up with like 44,000 DPS. That's like, you can see it's like 2,718 minimum to 18,696 maximum lightning damage per hit. And with that massive amount of lightning damage, what you do is you basically scale attack speed, so you're hitting really fast. And getting a lot of dex helps with that too. So let's look at the passive tree before we get back to the rest of the gearing choices I've made and the flask choices as well. So I picked my Ranger. If you wanted to play a crit version, and a Shadow would be good with Assassin Ascendancy. Otherwise, the Ranger is probably the best in slot. You pick up the Ranger, you grab, you ascend to a Raider, because Raider is pretty good with their frenzy charges. You get really easy offense and a good defense from the Avatar of the Veil, which basically makes you immune to elemental status, which is basically freeze immunity while you have, and gives you spell dodge while you're phasing as well. So it's pretty defensive. Another option would be the Pathfinder, but I just personally find the Raider to be more fun. Stacking frenzy charges and just getting back like mad deeps off of it. So when we ascend, we grab Way of the Poacher. Way of the Poacher gives us more attack speed and frenzy charge on kill, and more frenzy charge procs when you hit rares and uniques. And then you grab Avatar of the Slaughter, which gives you more damage and adds extra frenzy charge. So with 3 frenzy charges to your base character, you get 4 now with Avatar of the Slaughter. Then you pick up Quartz Infusion, which gives you dodge and phasing. So this is like the defensive side of the tree, with a lot of offense up here on Avatar of the Veil, which gives you like increased movement speed and damage, and also immunity to status ailments. One of the top ways you can die as a energy shield based character is is being frozen, and Avatar of the Veil lets you bypass that if you have Onslaught, and we use a Silver Flask to get Onslaught. So if you're frozen, you just tap your Silver Flask and you become immune to burn, to lightning, to shock, and to freeze as well. And since I have like a staunching roll on it, I become immune to bleed, so you're basically immune to all sorts of status elements with just one push of a button. So another reason we go energy shield on this character is because of this ton of intelligence we get. Intelligence actually gives you percentage energy shield, so going life on an intelligence based character is just a bad idea, really, because you're wasting a lot of like percentage increase energy shield off of that. So this ranger will just basically be CI just because of that. You stack so much intelligence, it ends up being your offensive ability and your defense. You get flat damage and defense out of it. So to maximize your intelligence with this character, even especially because you're a ranger, the witch is the one who usually has most of the intelligence nodes, but since you're playing ranger, because you need all the projectile and the other damage nodes as well, we're gonna have to get a lot of int. And to pick up that int, we grab 3 fertile mine jewels. I got perfect versions, and what it does, it converts all the dexterity you get as ranger into intelligence. So with 3 of them, you're able to convert a lot of intelligence away. Sorry if I moved the mic by accident. I don't know if you guys noticed that, but my bad. Regardless, we also pick up a brute force solution that converts the strength from the duelist area of the tree into intelligence as well, and that way you just stack a ton of int. And what we do is we pick up 4 notables, not notables. I forgot what these points are called, but let's just call them nodes for now. It has a proper name. I'll look it up later on. So we first of all we pick up chaos inoculation around level 60, and that makes our life 1, but it makes us immune to chaos damage. Now the immune to chaos damage is pretty cool, but the main reason we get CI is it gives us access to this notable called infused shield, which gives us more energy shield. So on top of the intelligence giving you energy shield and your gear giving you energy shield, the infused shield gives you a lot more energy shield. So what we do from there is we pick up the second one, which is Vol Pact, which makes your life leech apply instantly, but life regen has no effect. But since you only have 1 life, life regen is worthless, so Vol Pact is basically a no-brainer. And we pick up Ghost Reaver, which lets the life leech apply to energy shield. And since you're attacking super fast and with so much damage, the Vol Pact basically gives you immortality almost. If you've seen my Minotaur video, I face tank the bastard and I have like no problem with it. That's because of Vol Pact, which is probably one of the reasons energy shield is being nerfed in the next patch. So it's goodbye Hand of Wisdom in action. So yeah, this is basically a video not for like new players, but for players who might be wondering how OP the build was in the past and how it used to work with this old tree. So after you pick up Vol Pact and you pick up Ghost Reaver, the next thing we get is over here, the Duelist, is the Unwavering Stance, which basically makes you immune to stun. Now the immune to stun is really useful because one of the ways that CI characters tend to die is that since you have so low life, any hit will pretty much stun lock you. With Unwavering Stance, you can bypass that, and you don't need to waste an amulet slot on Eye of Choyula or Presence of Choyula or get any other belt or anything else that gives you stun immunity. So this is a very powerful node as well. Yeah, you basically can't evade enemy attacks, but that's not really that useful. I mean, nobody's trying to dodge too much with this character as well. I mean, you have basic spell dodge, but evasion doesn't really help too much. So the next thing with this character is that we need a lot of jewel slots. We pick up 1, 2, 3, 4 over here for our basic conversion jewels. Then we pick up 1 over here, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, I forgot to speak about Elemental Overload, which is another very important skill. It basically makes it so you can't crit anymore, but if you do crit, I mean, you crit, but you don't get the bonus damage from critting. Like, you don't do double damage when you crit. Instead, you get 40% more damage for the next 8 seconds. It's since we aren't able to really fit crit into this build unless you have like really OP items like Sky Forts and everything else, you might be able to do it and play crit Howa. If not, it's just better to pick up Elemental Overload and just do 40% more damage. So that's like if you have 100,000 damage, you're doing 40,000 more damage. So that's 140,000, just flat out like that. I'm pretty sure there's some math error there, but that's pretty much how it works. it gives you a ton of damage for just one node. Yeah, it's not permanent, but with the attack speed you have, you'll be hitting constantly, so you're probably gonna proc it as long as you have like 10% crit somewhere. And I do end up grabbing depth perception, which gives me a decent amount of critical chance, and I do have like one jewel with critical chance, 1 or 2, and that gives me like 10%. So with that, you're pretty much set, because you're attacking so fast with this character because of all the attack speed you get. So with the 5 extra jewels, I basically covered the missing resistances I have to cap my resistances. And that way, yeah, the jewels are mostly defensive, but every place I'm not getting resistance, I'm getting either crit or attack speed on the jewels. This way I have a ton of attack speed. I pick up like, I have like 0.21 attacks per second on this. That's without frenzy charges. So it drops down to like 0.17 attacks per second. So that's less than that's more than like 5 attacks per second. That's like 6 attacks per second, and it's incredibly fast, and your DPS just skyrockets off of that, because you already have a huge amount of flat lightning damage from your claws, all the intelligence you're stacking. So basically this is a glass cannon build, which is getting defense and offense. It literally is the best defense is the best offense kind of thing going on here. There's no double-edged swords over here. So that's basically the tree. You pick up as much intelligence as you can. You pick up 3 of the frenzy nodes. So combined with the one from over here, I think it's this one, that gives you 4 from the tree, 3 that you have basically. Then you pick up 1 from the bandit quest in Act 2 by helping Kraden. That gives you 8 frenzy charges. And then I pick up 1 more frenzy charge from my corrupted amulet. It's better to use a regular uncorrupted amulet, but I like the frenzy charge on it because it gives me more mobility because of the increased attack speed from, not Avatar of the Veil, Way of the Poacher, no, Avatar of Slaughter. So you get more attack speed, and that lets me move around with my movement skill a lot better. But yeah, one more thing is that you need the Vitality Void cluster here. Because combining that with Valpact and Ghost Reaver, that's basically all the leech you need. I also managed to get an enchantment on my boots, so I can kind of drop this one, the Life and Mana Leech, but I don't really, I'm not very comfortable without it. I just prefer to have the extra leech, just in case. But Vitality Void, this is pretty much mandatory if you don't have, because you're not going to be able to maintain your mana if you are basically not leeching mana as well. The mana leech is extremely important, or else you're just gonna run out of mana and you're not gonna be able to attack anymore. So that's the basic gist of the passive tree. Pick up jewels, pick up your important nodes, and pick up your frenzy charges, and pick up all the projectile nodes and energy shield nodes you can, just to boost your defenses. Now coming on to gear, looking at gear, we have 2 Hand of Wisdom and actions, which is basically core. There's nothing you can do, you need to have 2. I managed to get one with Culling Strike. So basically Culling Strike is that you do, if you hit a monster with which has like 10% or less life, it instantly dies. So it's really good on really tanky bosses. It basically is like 10% more damage on your attacks permanently. Next up, I pick up an Astromantis. You could do better with a rare amulet, but I just really like the Astromantis, and especially because I have one with more frenzy charges, it gives me even more damage. I could probably do better with a different rare amulet, but I'm just comfortable this way. Next up, I have a helmet. Well, this is a self-crafted one, and I picked one with a 15% reduced wrath mana reservation. When I talk about my gem setup, you're gonna see why that's really important. If you want, the best in slot version for this would probably be either slower projectiles of Spectral Throw, which will let your Spectral Throw like spin on top of the opponent a little bit longer and deal a little bit more damage, especially against bosses, or just flat out more Spectral Throw damage would be another really good enchantment here. On gloves, it's just regular gloves with attack speed, resistance, and energy shield, and intelligence. You want to get as much intelligence on as you can on all your gear. The flat attack damage is something I would not have liked. I would have preferred a flat lightning damage roll, but it's what I ended up getting. As for the enchantment, I have attack with decree of war, This is a Decree of War, so that's like from the Merciless, I think, lab. So it's like a tier 2 enchantment rather than the final version of the enchantment. So it only summons 2 of the same. Basically, when I kill an opponent, it's gonna summon 2 claws of my Hand of Wisdom in action, which attacks whatever's close to it. It's like having 2 minions as well. It's pretty useful, but I think the best one would probably be the enchantment with Decoy, where you can create a copy of your own character. I haven't run any labs this league besides the one to Ascend, so I haven't been able to get it. But if I did, that would probably be the enchantment I'd want on my gloves. For boots, I managed to get extra leech, which gives me the mobility to like remove the Vitality Void leech if I want to or not, but I don't really care. It's just safer for me to have a little bit more leech. Is pretty good. Otherwise, you could have lightning damage on it, or that would probably be one of the best ones I can think of. I'm not very well, I don't really know very much about enchantments on boots, but that's the best one I can think of that would be on this on a pair of boots you can get. Next up, I have a Hysteria Essence crafted belt. You can see it gives you penetration of elemental resistances while using a flask. Another way I tried to increase the damage on this character is by maxing out elemental penetration. I get elemental penetration from the tree, I get it from the gem, and I get it from here, so I have a ton of elemental penetration as well, and that lets me do almost like true damage on most enemies as well. Let's see, what else do I have? I have 2 rings, both with int and wed, and one with accuracy. You need a little bit of accuracy to make sure your crits are working fine and that you don't miss your attacks. I have like 300 accuracy, and that's all the accuracy I have on my gear. I think I have 1 accuracy cluster on my tree as well. You don't really need too much out of there. It's just kind of like make sure your life is topped up if you're hitting everything and your damage is good. It goes from 88 to 90%. So yeah, accuracy is not really that important, but it helps while you have it. This one has resistances because I really needed resistances on everything. And finally is my chest piece. I got very lucky and I managed to craft this one by using Chaos Orbs and got a 912 roll on it. This is really rare. I got extremely lucky. I'm probably gonna go and try and craft it and change the fire and lightning resistance to a better one later on by using meta crafting. I'll probably explain meta crafting in a different video, but it's gonna be a very expensive project, but this is gonna be a super expensive item down the road. So that's it for gear. For flash setups, I have the Atziri's Promise, which gives me extra life leech and gives me elemental damage as well. And since I have this node over here, which is Fangs of the Viper, it gives me increased chaos damage as well. So that works with my Atziri's Promise, giving me even more damage. Next I have the Wise Oak, and Wise Oak is really useful because it gives me elemental penetration off of lightning and also reduces the damage I take off of whatever is not the lowest one I have. Right now the lowest I have is actually cold and lightning, so I have like maxed out. I'm doing like more lightning damage. This is another source of lightning penetration, but at the same time I take reduced fire damage as well. So the Wise Oak is giving me a damage boost as well as a defense boost to fire resistance. It would be best if I managed to get all 3 of them to 141. That way the Wise Oak would give me triple penetration and triple defense against all 3 elements, but sadly I'm not that lucky getting gear that can just be enough. I need like just 5 more fire res, but I haven't been lucky to get something like that. It's been really difficult to put this together. Next we have the Vessel of Vinktar. This is not a legacy version, it's just a regular version. It gives me more lightning damage leech. It helps me stay leeched up against bosses like Shaper and Atziri, and it gives me more penetration. So I have a ton of penetration from the Wise Oak, Vinktar, from my belt, from the penetration gem, from the passive tree as well. So that way I'm doing almost true damage. I know I've said this before, but the closer you are to doing true damage, because like the way the mechanics of the game works, you want to do as much true damage as you can. Resistance hampers your damage a lot. you'll see like mobs with elemental resistance being super tanky and being really hard to kill, especially essence monsters and especially the unique bosses like Shaper and Atsiri. So getting penetration is always useful. Next I have Dying Sun. Dying Sun gives me 2 additional projectiles. That just helps me with my clear speed and helps me maintain my my fire resistance. I don't have anything for cold, but yeah, fire resistance up is pretty good as well. Finally, I have the Silver Flask of Staunching. The Staunching is really important, and it being on a silver base, that means with just one click of a button, I have all of it cleared. All the status elements you do being a raider is going to be cleared. I don't have to deal with bleed, don't have to deal with shock, freeze, chill, burn, nothing. They're all gone just with one button, all gone. As for item links, I run 2 auras. My aura setup is over here. I have Discipline, I have Wrath hooked up to both Enlighten and Empower. Now I would not have been able to run all 4 auras if I didn't have this helmet with reduced Wrath mana reservation, so that's really important. So we pick up Discipline, that bumps my energy shield to 11,330, and Wrath, which bumps my damage from 44 to 51. And next I have my Lightning Golem, which is over here. It's just level 20. I didn't get a good corruption on it. I don't think a corruption is going to help too much either. I'm not sure. Maybe it'll give me 1% more attack speed. I'll have to look it up later. But with the Lightning Golem's attack speed boost, I end up being at 53k damage. So that's my base damage at town. And that's all the buffs I have. I don't really have any other buffs. My cast when damage taken setup is cast when damage taken, increased duration, immortal call, and enfeeble. Even though I'm not using endurance charges, the small boost I get from immortal call is enough to keep me alive from physical damage. I have like my flask to protect me against elemental damage, but this is all the defense I have against physical damage. So physical damage is pretty scary for me. But I also have Enfeeble. So Enfeeble is going to proc every time I take damage, and it's just going to make the monsters that are cursed do less damage to me. So aura setup on boots. I have my cast when damage taken set up on my gloves. So whenever I take damage, I get Immortal Call that makes me immune to Fizz, and also Enfeeble the mobs as well. Next up, I have my Val aura setup hooked up to my golem. I have increased duration, Val haste, Val discipline, and lightning golem. The Val haste is basically like a life flask for energy the Val discipline is like a life flask for energy shield characters, and Val haste is like it gives me more clear speed, so I just use whichever one. If I'm dying, I'm Val discipline. If I'm not dying, I'm using Val haste whenever I can. My next setup is my ancestral protector. This is on my R skill. It's a totem that does damage and also gives me more attack speed, so that boosts my damage up to 63,000. So when I'm fighting Shaper or any monster that I have to stand still and fight, I proc this guy and he gives me a little bit more damage. I have it hooked up to Flame Dash, which I'm gonna use right now. See, and I use Flame Dash with faster casting, so I have all 3 of these hooked up, so I can summon my protector and then Flame Dash pretty fast due to faster casting. And I keep Flame Dash just for like some of the maps where there's like a huge gap in the wall which I can't like Whirling Blaze through, which is my primary movement skill, with my Flame Dash being secondary. Now my primary movement skill is Whirling Blaze, which I have hooked up to 45. 45 is the only other physical damage defense I have. 45, whenever I go through or hit an enemy with my Whirling Blaze, I'm gonna get 45 for a small time, and that's gonna give me a flat physical damage reduction. So this is this with my cast when damage taken is all the defense that this character has. It's really a glass cannon. And I have faster attacks, so I can Whirling Blaze faster. So basically just Whirling Blazing around and then just Flame Dash when I hit walls or something I need to jump over. And for the main attraction, we have my Spectral Throw setup right here, which is on my right mouse button. I got Spectral Throw hooked up to Weapon Elemental Damage, which is basically a no-brainer because of all the elemental damage that the Hand of Wisdom action gets you from the int. Next I have Elemental Focus, which makes it so that I can't inflict elemental status ailments anymore. So even though I'm doing lightning damage, I'm not able to shock anymore because of the Elemental Focus gem, but I'm doing more damage. So this is why Vessel of Ingthar is important, because it lets you shock the opponents, and that's like another more damage you can do. When the opponent is shocked, it shocks you too, but it'll shock the opponent, and while the opponent is shocked, they take more damage. And since I'm using this gem, I don't have a natural way to shock the opponent, so the Ingthar becomes very important there. Then I have Light Pen, and I've talked about how important penetration is. Then I have flat added lightning damage. This is just it gives me percentage increased damage, as well as adding a flat lightning damage, which scales off of everything else as well. And I have greater multiple projectiles, so that I'm shooting 4 projectiles rather than just 1. So if you see I take it out, I just end up with 1 projectile that goes way over there. My damage increases, but yeah, it's not really good for clear speed. Now, the other thing I have is slower projectiles. I hook this up whenever I'm fighting bosses. What it does is that it makes my range really small, like absolutely tiny, but I'm able to do insane damage. So it's like at 90,000 right now, so with everything else up it's 103, with that it's like 124, and I can just bump up my damage to like 200-300,000. So this is my single target when I'm fighting bosses. That's what I'm using. So yeah, that's the setup for my items. I have an alternate item slot where I have like Haku's weapons to be to level up my regular gems. Seems like I do have a few gems that are already max I'm gonna be selling soon. But yeah, that's the items, that's the class and the passive tree. Here's the character sheet if you're interested. You'll see my chance to dodge is really minuscule, but I have decent ES. 11,330 is pretty good. I've seen some other Howa players have like 1,300, 1,500, but I'm pretty happy with this. I didn't really die too often because of All Pact. I have all capped resistances, but they're barely capped. They're like barely capped. I have bumped up lightning resistance as well because of the unnatural calm. I really like this node because it helps me deal with reflect as well. When you're fighting, like the only thing that I've had trouble with Howa is that elemental reflex sometimes kills you, volatile sometimes kills you, lag definitely always kills you, and what else? But yeah, reflect and volatiles and of course the boss slams and boss attacks can kill you, but lightning resistance is gonna really help deal with the reflect issue as well. As long as you have Vessel of Ingthar up and lightning resistance, reflect becomes almost a non-issue. As for offense, you can see an incredible amount of damage here. There's a lot of stats, but basically here's the damage. There's 10% crit here, and no crit multiplier. It's stuck at 100%. And you can see that my lightning penetration is 14% right now, but with everything else combined it ends up... Oh wait, no, that's the wrong one. Huh. Yeah, there's the lightning penetration. It's 37%, and then with weapons it's 14%, and then it just keeps getting higher and higher. Defense, you can see cannot be stunned. Resistances, decent movement speed, but with Whirling Blades, movement speed is not really an issue. And then finally it's the charges. I have 9 charges, I think. Where's the frenzy charges? 9 frenzy charges. This is very important. I don't use endurance charges, don't use power charges. That's all I need. And yeah, that's a basic overview of this character. I don't know how many people really enjoyed, especially since everybody played Howa. Howa is probably one of the most popular builds in Path of Exile of all time. I don't know if I talked about where to find the Howa. The Hand of Wisdom in Action is a drop you get as Hand of Thought in Motion. It's a claw you can get from Esh's. It's a breach unique. You find it in Esh's domain and any Esh breach. There's a small chance it can drop. And anytime you kill Esh, there's a pretty decent chance that Hand of Thought in Motion will drop. And once you end up getting a Hand of Thought in Motion, you can bless it and make it into a Hand of Wisdom in Action. And yeah, you're ready to go. But they're pretty much killing the build next patch, which is probably in a month or two, and when 3.0 releases. So this entire video is a waste of time.